Okay, hello, everyone. I believe I should be live or very close to being live. Let me just make sure that you guys can. Yes, I am live. Okay, great. Let's make sure everyone is able to hop in here. Let's add this link. How's everyone doing? I hope you guys are having an awesome day. Okay, here we go. There it is. All right, so let me just make sure you guys can come in. Okay. If you are watching on the replay, make sure you write hashtag replay and welcome everyone who is here, that you are able to join live. So this is our Biblical Basics for Beginners in Business class. I'm super excited for it today. I know it's going to be really good. If you missed any of them, everything is uploaded to our YouTube channel, Network for the Kingdom. Make sure you put the number 4, so it's N4K, Network for the Kingdom, and you'll find us there on YouTube. So the point of this is we did one on stewardship. Right now we are in the middle of talking about authority and how these biblical principles can be applied to our life and to our business. Okay. So what we want to do is to help you to discover those things so that your business can flourish and God can truly bless what you're doing and what you're putting your hand to. So thank you. I see some of you that are there live. Let me know where you're coming from. Always love to interact with you guys. These are short little videos. We should be about 20 minutes or so. And this is every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. So let's talk about it. Let's go. If you missed the first one, the replay is also there. So let's talk about authority. When I hear this word, in the past, when I would hear the word authority, I'd be like, got a little bit of like a gut reaction when I hear that. Because in the past, I've had some pretty poor examples of authority. I've had good examples, but poor examples. And the sad part is sometimes the poor examples tend to outweigh the good of the good examples. They say, like, for example, if you give feedback and it's critical, so some form of criticism that's negative, that you need to give 4 positive to kind of equate to the impact of that one negative thing. So authority is super important. And in the first class, we talked about how authority as a whole, it comes in different ways, right? You have your governmental authorities, you have your parents as kind of that first authority. And then we also think about for ourselves, right? Even in our business, right? There's a level of authority. There's kind of a dynamic there, play dynamic. But there's 3 words I want us to look at, because when we think of authority, there are really these 3 things, and it's power, control, and strength. Now, each of these words, we can probably easily right away have certain associations that we think of, right? When I think of power, what do I think of right away, right? What's the first thing that comes to my mind when I think power? What's the first thing that comes to my mind when I think control? Okay, if you've had bad experiences, it might be negative. Control is not a bad thing, right? It just has to be under godly authority, and we'll get into that. Strength, right? What is strength? Okay, what is the first thing you think of? Because the definition of authority is the power or right, okay, to give orders, make decisions, and enforce obedience. Oh, so many tough words. Who had a trigger reaction to the word obedience? Oh my, I know some of you on here are like, oh, that word. Okay, our little inner rebellious selves. No, but let's keep going. Let's go. Authority. So power, control, strength. That's what I want us to think of. Those three things. Okay. And we talked about this idea of the story of the Roman centurion. Okay. It was a man who had power and he was relying on Jesus to come and to heal his servant. So in Matthew 8:9, the story appears in Luke as well, but in Matthew 8, verse 9, these are the words of that Roman centurion who understood that he had a lot of authority. He had Rome to back him up, right? The centurion had a group of people under him. But what I find so beautiful about this example is he says, "For I also am a man under authority." A man of authority is saying, I am also a man who is under authority. What does that tell you? This man understood, although he was not part of Israel, he was a Roman. This man understood that to be a person of authority, you need to be under an authority. And there's one authority that is the highest of authorities, right? Which is God. He is the ultimate highest authority. But when we know that, right, and we submit ourselves under God's authority, even though we can be people of authority, that's where the source comes from, right? That's where we draw from our strength, we draw our source from. Okay, so he says, under authority, having soldiers under me. So he's under authority. In this case, it was the Roman governmental structure, but also knowing that God being the highest authority, having soldiers under him, so people who he was in charge of. And he says, and I say to this one, go, and he goes, and to another, come, and he comes, and to my servant, do this, and he does it. So there's these examples of having that influence, having the ability to tell somebody something to do, and then they obey, they do it, right? It's to enforce the command that's given. Now, what's good about this example is we have to understand that all of these elements are at play: power, control, strength. Had the ability through all of those three things, okay? Something interesting about this particular situation, however, is that this man had a heart that was aligned with God's purposes, okay? This Roman centurion knew that he was under an authority, although he was a man of authority. When you have people in authority, these can be business owners, these can be anybody who's in a position of leadership that is not submitted to an authority, does not follow the process of submitting to another authority, again, God being the ultimate authority, they themselves are actively in a form of rebellion. Okay. Now I want to go somewhere with this. Why? When we think of power, okay, we have to think about, what is my first thought? So if I say, those of you who are watching live, I see you, Andrew, I see you, Patrick, Angela, whoever's on here, Elaine, okay, if you guys are still with me, what do you think of when you first think of power? What's the first thing that you think of? That's going to give you an indication of the marker of where you are. So when I think of power, okay, power is simply the ability to influence others. That's what leadership is. It's the ability to influence others. If you run an organization or you have people under you, you're in some kind of position of power, right? There's that word, position of power. You need to have the ability to influence other people. There's nothing wrong with that, okay? It's the way that you go about influencing others, whether it's through fear, whether it's through love, that decides whether you're activating, your power through the flesh or you're doing it through the Holy Spirit. There's a big difference. Because godly power comes from the Holy Spirit. He gives us the ability to overcome evil, okay? As a godly leader, as one who has authority in some sense, we need to understand that the godly power through the Holy Spirit enables us, okay, to serve other people. When you have the worldly power, okay, this is the flesh, the demonic, this power is used to overcome others for the means of control, okay? And this is where power is abused in order to serve the self, to self-promote, to get yourself to where you have to be, okay? And usually that's where rebellion is kind of like in the process of that, because if God is the one that is lifting you, bringing you forward, doing those things, you're going to be submitted to, you're going to be also submitted, okay, when it comes to authority. That second piece is control. Now, control is control's actually a need, okay? We have a need to feel like we have some level of control over our environment, over our situation, our circumstances, things that we're going through. We have to feel some level of control, okay? And it's not a bad thing. When things are chaotic or, out of our control, or we feel we have no ability to proceed in what we're doing, it does cause feelings of chaos maybe, right? Or things like that. So control is not necessarily a bad thing, okay? God tells us to have self-control because that's the only thing you can control is yourself, Okay. So when we have self-control and we're in leadership, or we're doing our business or whatever it is, we have the ability to direct our own behavior in the course of events that follows from our own behavior. The book of James is all about self-control, controlling the tongue, right? Controlling the thoughts of our mind, our thoughts, our words, our actions, right? These things is within our realm of control and ability to control that. However, when control goes outside, okay, and we use our power or position of authority to control others, that's when it becomes of the flesh. That's when we are in rebellion. We're not in right, right understanding. So we cannot control the behaviors and actions of others. We can only influence them. That's all we are able to do. When we understand that, and you are, put to lead other people, especially as a business owner, think about your business, think about your employees, the people who are working in that organization that God has gifted you with. If you begin to function in the flesh, control, they need to do what I'm telling them, this and that, you can only influence someone to do something. Okay. And there's ways that happens through good leadership, but understanding that we don't abuse our power, right? Because we don't have the ability to control the beliefs and thoughts and actions of other people. You can't, you can only influence. So that's because God gives us free will. If we choose to violate that free will, we are aligning ourselves with the enemy, right? To try to come into that. And then God's blessing is not going to be on that, because God gives us all free will. He gives us the ability to make choices, whether they're good choices or bad choices. Okay. And so when we understand that our authority submitted under God, who gives us the power, right, to do the work, knowing that we only have the ability to control ourselves, okay, but to influence others to make good decisions, to help with their behaviors and the course of events that follow. And then this last piece you have is strength. Okay, so this is the third piece of authority. Strength is really the capacity of something to withstand great pressure or force. Okay, that's what strength is. When strength is used incorrectly or strength is abused, there's usually a connection, okay, with control and with power, with wrong understandings and views of control and power. And you can take this information honestly and apply this like to, your parenting, to your marriage, to, how you feel about people around you as an employee, those who you employ, right? So there's different ways to apply all of this. It all still, resonates in those different areas. But when we think about the capacity of a thing to withstand great pressure or force, that's what strength is. When this is used incorrectly, it's when pride is there, right? So when there's pride, it's about self, it's about the flesh, it's about me, it's about controlling the actions, thoughts, and beliefs of others, and it's using my power and my power to negatively influence others so that I might be exalted. When this is submitted correctly, okay, humility is strength submitted to a greater authority. That's what humility is. So God says, I'll lift up the humble, right? And he brings down the proud. When the proud are brought down, they can be in a position of humility to understand that our authority only comes from one place, which is God. So with strength, humility is strength. You can be a strong person, but humility is strength submitted to an authority. So what did the Roman centurion understand? He understood that his strength, his authority, his power, right? All of these things comes from being under an authority. I hope you guys are catching that. Okay, that's where it comes from, not in and of himself. So understanding that, we take these elements, okay, we apply these elements to our life, we apply these elements to our business, and that's how God can bless the authority that you're given. And if he gives you some, he can give you more, right? If you want your business to grow, you want a team of 100 people under you, right? This is where it starts, understanding authority, being submitted to authority. Now I'm going to say something, and I hope I may ruffle some feathers, So I'm going to warn you ahead of time. Okay. Sometimes in certain situations, especially in ministry or in a church setting, people do not want to submit to the authority of the pastor. There might be things in your pastor that you're like, man, like, I don't agree with that. But what it opens the door to, and you have to be careful, is people leave the church. People get angry towards God. Okay. These things become wrong beliefs about authority, or wrong views about authority in our mind towards the church. And this is where it really starts. Okay. So some of you who are listening to me right now, you've gone through that. You've experienced that. And I pray, right now that the Lord breaks those things off of you, because in order for us to be submitted, in order to be exalted, right, to go forward, so God's exalted, but he brings us up, we have to deal with our views of authority. We have to be willing to submit, even if we don't agree. Now, I'm not telling you to submit to, a pastor who's sinning. That's not what I'm saying. Or to a boss that you don't like, that is telling you to do something that's against the Lord. That's not what I'm saying. But you're not going to agree with everything, but that doesn't give us a right to get offended, right? And to create gossip and division and to do all of those things. So for those of you who are listening right now and you're like, Daniela, I feel offended by what you're saying, I've never been one to run from controversial things. I'm telling you to help you from experience, because I've been in that situation. So I hope you hear this in love. But what we need to do is we need to remove the wrong views of authority. How do we remove these wrong views? We need to analyze. We need to look as examples. Hitler, perfect example. I have this person here. There's plenty of other dictators in history, but this is, I think, one of the most prolific ones that people can connect and understand with. And it's pretty universal. So that's a wrong view of authority. That's power, right? That was abused, right? Through whatever he was dealing with. Control, to control people, right? To influence them in a way that is negative, that hurts others and exalts the self. I like this example of the Wolf of Wall Street, which, by the way, I don't claim copyright on any of these images. I did not create them. Okay. So copyright to the specific owners. However, the Wolf of Wall Street is a good example. So this shows where where the world thinks that authority and power lies. And in this case, it's money. One who has a lot of money has power. Okay. According to the world. All right. So that is the image that's created. One that has a lot of, in this case, he had the most beautiful trophy wife, right? He had a lot of women around him. So this is the image that is placed in our mind that is connected with authority. So if you have a wound from childhood of powerlessness, you're going to go for this. This is how the devil brings you, right? But that is not how God designed us to function when it comes to authority. We are given dominion and authority, right? Our authority was in the garden as children of God, as his creation, given dominion and authority over all creation, over all the earth, over the animals. That's what we were created for. So we need to heal our understanding of authority. Okay. So this is not the correct understanding. If that is where, you're focused, then you're going to be going according to the flesh. When you look at this other example, right, even with our words, even the things we say, the things we do towards those who are seemingly, not as powerful, okay, in some ways. When we think about that, we need to understand our authority that we carry. And we need a right view of authority. So what is a right view of authority? Where does it start? It starts with understanding that Jesus came, right? He left the highest of high positions. He came, right? Was made manifest in the earth, in a flesh body, right? In the earth, came and look, he was born in a stable. It wasn't anything spectacular. Was born amongst animals, right? Came to be the lowest of the low, okay? Humility. It's a lesson of humility, to come in the lowest of low, to know that even though he had all authority, all position, he could have came as the highest of highest people, but he didn't. Okay. And this is what we need to take from this for ourselves, that we are to shepherd. We are to help people. We are to influence. The shepherd doesn't, beat the sheep. Well, actually, there's a fun story about correction, but maybe we'll get there in another time, about when sheep really don't listen, what happens, but I'm not going to get there. Save that for another time. I'm supposed to cap at 20 minutes. But to understand that the shepherd, what does the shepherd do? It influences, it guides, it leads in the right direction, right? For the right goal, for protection, for security, but in our cases, for business, for growth, okay? For the things that we're doing. And then finally, you have this idea of sacrifice, right? Being able to bear your cross. If your people that are working for you in your organization are going through something, you need to be sensitive to that, right? We need to be sensitive that people have lives, people have families, people are hurt. One of the things that's really terrible about the way that, a lot of corporations function is, they give you a handful of sick days, if you get sick, or this or whatever. And I understand the need for those things, but we have to also understand that we're in the business of serving people. Okay. It's not about people serving us to push our organization forward. It's about how well we can lead and serve others. And that's what's going to grow. There's a lot of really great examples. I have a client right now who's writing his book, and I can't wait for this man to get this book out there. You know who you are. I'm calling you out, right? Because it deals with these issues in customer service, right? It deals with all of these issues and what we can do, as leaders, if you have people under you or those who are serving and ministering right where you are. It doesn't matter if you work at Staples, you work at, it doesn't matter. Okay. That we are called to display this. So, I see you're there. I like your thumbs up. I see you there. All right, awesome. So we got to consider these things and have a right view of authority, have a right view of influence, okay? So that God can really bless what you're trying to do in your business and really give you those positions of leadership to grow. Because a lot of you who are on here, right? You're business owners, you're leading in some way. You're leading clients, maybe you have a small team. Okay. And you can apply these understandings to every area. All right. So I'm going to put a pause in this here. That is pretty much to wrap up part 2 of our lesson on authority for our Bible Basics class. I am back here on next Wednesday. So please make sure you join us next Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern.